So, hi, welcome to the Ask Me Anything part of our quarterly series. I'm here to answer any ethics questions you have regarding any AI ethics questions you have, provided it's related to writing and editing and as it relates to us, excuse me. And so I'm just going to share my screen again so that you can see who I am and what I do. And then we can move right into questions. So I am, I am having some difficulty getting there we go. Can you see my bio here? Okay. I'm Amy Fresh Hour Kelly, and Fresh Hour rhymes with rush hour, just so everybody's got that. Why am I qualified to answer your questions? For one thing, I have 30 years of editorial experience in journalism, technical documents, content marketing, and finance. So I've got some experience with editing. I was also an early experimenter and adopter of generative AI. I was one of the first editors to identify AI generated copy and develop an AI content policy. And I have presented on that for ACES and for EFA and a number of other organizations. And I am an AI ethics champion, and I'm big on ethics overall, a little bit of a geek about that. Um, I do want to just make a quick disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice or advice on copyright issues per se from a legal perspective. I can talk about plagiarism. My expertise is, again, in editing, ethics, and business. So I am a geek, but there are other smarter geeks than me. So I am not a tech professional. And I do not make recommendations or endorsements, except for my course on creating AI policies. Um, an AI content policy documents the decisions that are made around the use of AI to ensure that editors and everyone we work with remain transparent and accountable. So a policy is a living document, and it's designed to adapt as technologies and professional and cultural expectations change. So here's a promo code for 20% off the course. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And let's get going with some questions. Please raise your hand. And if you do not have that, if you do not have questions, I have examples of questions that people have asked in the past. So please feel free to jump right in. Oh, hi, Angie. Yes, please.
Hi, I actually do have a question today, and I see that Steph Thompson is here as well. It's from a project that we're working on together. It involves um, writers creating lesson plans, and so that has all kinds of content in it. And one thing that we noticed was that there was a poem, and there's poems in several different lessons. And so some of them, though, have attribution for, who wrote it and what published work it came out of, and this one didn't have that. And so Steph asked where it came from and was told that it was AI generated. So the question is, what issues, if any, should we be talking with the client about with respect to including specifically an AI generated poem and more generally, if there's other AI generated content? And I have my own thoughts on the subject, but we want to hear from you first, and then we'll see, if I might have follow-up questions.
I would be delighted to talk to you about that. I'd like to have some context. I think that I saw what you were talking about in the EFA Discord. But
Um,
I'd like to, could you just explain a little more context? I don't think that everyone has been involved in that.
yeah, I think Steph posted about it in a Slack group. That might be where you saw it.
Uh,
At any rate, my understanding is that the writers are employed by the company for whom Steph and I are contractors. And so, based on my own experience of previously writing courses for a corporation, that would be work for hire. And so,
mhm.
stuff that I wrote, the company owns that. And so that's my current understanding of how this arrangement would be working as well. And then this is a company that um, has a product that they're selling to school districts, to private schools, to various clients. And so these lesson plans that we're editing are part of their product.
Okay. So these are lesson plans that you are editing, um, and the material that you're talking about that was AI generated was actually generated by a contributor and a as work for hire.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, there needs to be a disclosure process in place. Clearly, it can't just be something where you ask for an attribution and then it's sprung on you. Well, this was generated by AI. AI usage should be linked to a particular articulatable a benefit that you can articulate, right? There has to be some reason that they did that. They're not being paid to type a prompt into ChatGPT, regardless of how much work they put into that and how much interaction they have with the model, right? So, as for ownership, because it is work for hire, um, I would say that the company does own that. However, your client really needs to have um, some sort of policy in place, or just some sort of guidance for the authors on what is acceptable, what is useful, what is not acceptable. Um, Certainly, contributing AI generated material. And again, I'm not sure what percentage of this person's work was AI generated. If they,
Neither do I.
I can
well, there's an
actually
issue.
add.
Oh,
Hi, I'm Steph. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump over
Hi.
anyone. I can add a little more detail. Angie did a beautiful job capturing the issue. But just to clarify, the company is using a customized and closed AI tool,
ah,
and
Oh,
it is accepted practice, encouraged practice within the company. They've spent a lot of money on this tool and they've trained it. And so um, the use of AI isn't necessarily questioned by the company. I think, you know, what I'm a little stuck on is, does it look odd to have, you know, poems interspersed throughout these lessons that have attribution and then all of a sudden have a poem that has no attribution? And B, like if we were to add an attribution, what does that look like? And C, do we need to run it through any kind of plagiarism checker? Because I am concerned about just copyright issues in general.
okay. This is your point. A was that this is something that's the use of this tool is encouraged, right?
Correct.
Was that okay? So it's encouraged and it's proprietary, it's a closed system. That's great. Um, in terms of, hmm, well, in terms of, it looks like disclosure is part of the question because these poems again are all have attributions except for this one or these few. Um, Certainly, you could write a disclosure line that simply says this poem was written with the assistance of generative AI. It's not completely just generated
mhm.
by AI, right? So this was written by so and so with the assistance of this particular tool, and then perhaps have some sort of discussion of how it was used, especially if these things, if there's more than one of these, if there's more than one uh, of these poems that need to be attributed, then you could perhaps even have an asterisk in a box where people can refer to this and say, they'll be able to look at that and you can have a blanket disclosure. I think that would be good for details about it. And you could just have a line saying, this was written by so-and-so with the help of this particular LLM. Here's more information. So that's another way that you could deal with that. Regarding the provenance of data and plagiarism, those are two different things. I I don't think that you could really say that it's plagiarism, especially because I would assume that this LLM that is proprietary is one that has purchased their data that they have been trained on. Is that right? Do you know?
That's a really good question. Angie and I are both contractors on this project, and we're partnering with, writers who are full-time employees of this company. Um,
Okay.
and so that's a really good question. I don't actually have the answer to that.
Okay. One of the things that I would say about that, which I have written down over here, if I can find it. I don't know where it is. The way that data is generally moved around within an AI tool, like what we're talking about, typically when an LLM is trained on data, or the data is harvested, which is another thing altogether. I'm not going to go into that. I shouldn't have mentioned that. When data is scraped, then you are going to find that this data is broken down into little tokens or chunks that can be mixed and matched, like one of those menus where you have three different columns, you put them all together in all kinds of different types of organization. Actually, I think that Jeanette and I a couple of years ago had a conversation about that, regarding plagiarism and how the technology actually works. What you're going to find, for the most part, in general, is that works that have been used for training purposes and may have been somehow involved in whatever created these poems. Um, those works have been broken down into very small chunks of prediction. So predicting that in many, many poems like this, these words are arranged in this particular order, and that's the way that they go, and then they get into their whole flow there. Um, it's rare that you will see a sentence even that is reproduced in its entirety. That's much more likely to happen with a very, very popular work that has been reproduced hundreds or thousands of times all over the place, like Shakespeare, for instance. You will find that you're much more likely to get phrases from that simply because it appears so frequently and has created so much of a trend for the tools to follow. I don't think that it really works that way for plagiarism in terms of creating something. It certainly can involve stealing data, though, because people have created this work and they are likely not compensated for that or compensated for the use, which is something else we can get into. And I'm sorry, did I answer the question? I see that Stephanie isn't here, so
Yeah.
Angie, did I?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I had thought of these different issues as well. The issue of ownership, of the origin of the data, the copyrightability of the resulting text, and the disclosure about all of this. And you have added to our understanding, though, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think we've got,
Um,
good stuff to go back and talk with the client about now. Yeah.
Great, great. Let me know how it goes.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else got a question here? Jeanette, hi.
Hello. Okay, so I have an interesting situation that I'm still trying to formulate the question, so hopefully by the time I explain it, I'll be able to ask a question. Um, I work with a publisher, and the I have a book which is about like AI stock buying, right? Buying stocks that have to do with AI. And I am extremely suspicious that the author used AI fairly extensively for a lot of it.
Mhm.
I brought these concerns to the publisher. I brought out pieces of it that I said, this indicates it to me, this indicates it to me, and they said, well, we need to know. So we all asked the author, and he said, I used AI agents to get like research from the internet to see about this topic, but like I didn't use any of its wording. And he vehemently said he didn't generate any wording with it. And I'm like, more than 1,000% sure it is. I mean, I can't imagine that he writes like that. So one of the problems I'm having is that like I choose in my personal, work with indie authors, I have a part of my contract that says I verify that I did not use AI to write this, and that person, I'm trusting that they did that. With an indie client, theoretically, if I find out they lied, I could dump them. I can't really do that with this one, so I'm just continuing on. But I guess that brings up the question of like my own morals, right? Like how am I going to be able to stick to my own morals of I don't want to work on this when people are going to be doing it anyway and maybe lie to me about it. And I don't trust checkers. It's not like I can check for sure. So I just don't know where to draw the line, I guess. Like, where do I start compromising on my own morals to edit things
That's
just because it's a project?
that's a great question. Your client is the publisher, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any sort of paperwork between you and the publisher stating that you are that you stating what their policy is on AI use, for instance, or have they
I do
provided any?
not. No, but
Okay.
I signed a contract with them enough years ago that that wasn't a thing. so we have, but I did ask them what their AI policy was because of this, like what's in his contract, and they said in his contract he has to disclose to us if AI has been used and how, because with our permissions, and some of like our distributors won't distribute AI books. And so we have to like they have other people who they have to assure he has not used AI. So supposedly it's in his contract, but like I just kind of know he lied. There's just no ifs, ands, and
Yeah.
buts about it. So I just don't know what to do about in that situation.
Well, I'm just going to call back to a concept that I've talked about before, the JFK concept or the rush hour principle, which is as an editor of a certain amount of experience, you just F no, right? We have a pretty good idea, or we suspect when something has been generated by AI and not modified substantively. So there's that. And your radar is going off, your editorial spidey sense, and that makes sense. Um, Now, you don't have any control right now over the author's behavior. You can report it, and depending on how you feel about working for a publisher who says, "Yeah, it's okay. They didn't disclose it, so they didn't do it." Um, that's really, I think, where your ethical quandary is. I mean, that's a tough one, right?
Because
Because
I
they're
keep
paying
thinking
you.
like if they were an indie author and they assigned my contract that says I didn't, and then I
Mhm.
suspected them of doing it and approached them and they said, no, for sure I didn't, I don't know what I would do in that situation because maybe I'm in the middle of the project already and I would have to give back the money because I canceled the project on them. Maybe they didn't. Maybe, I just, it's such a sticky, like, I don't know what I would do.
Well, you have options of pulling out. That may or may not be an option depending on your financial situation and how tight your contract is. Um, I would say I would point out that I would write up, if it were me, I would feel better if I were to write up some sort of document that explained how I had my JFK, something that would say, hey, okay, this is the kind of repetitive, odd cadence that I've noticed. This is the difference from their typical writing. Um, and this is where I get it. This is how I put that information together. And these are the different instances within the manuscript that I have noted. And there are enough of them that I feel strongly that this is something that should be looked into by the publisher, by you, the publisher, or I can look into it as long as I know that I have your back, that you have my back. Yeah. So that is something that you could do. And then depending upon their actions after that, I would say for me, that would certainly influence my feeling of this being an ethical project. I would also be interested to know from them what what they would do. What is their chain of what's their decision making process if it turns out that this person has used AI to a point that it is not really their writing. What's okay for them and what would happen? So these are questions you could ask. Also, just see if they have an originality clause in their contract for the writer.
Didn't
That's
think about
something.
that, but yeah. Okay, yeah, these are great. Thank you. Again, I didn't really have like the question other than I'm really having this moral quandary of, and it was a substantive edit. So by now I've edited out all of the things that I thought were AI. So it's not anymore, but
You should charge extra for all that extra work, right?
I know I took 8,000 words out of the book that were either repetitive, AI, or self-promotional. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a
All
lot. They're
right.
okay with that, but thank you.
Yeah. Great. Um, Other questions or just comments? One thing that I have noticed is that there is an increasing um, amount of, let me just move this. There's an increasing amount of work that is created by copywriters in which they're using generative AI, and it is really being used mostly for ideation purposes and for creating something that they can then edit. And it has been useful for people in creating volume that they can then edit and turn into something that is substantively their own work and good quality work in, again, high volume. So I certainly know that someone is here on the call who has been able to do that and make it work. And it's phenomenal. And I think that's completely ethical and an important part of writing going forward and probably editing as well. So if anybody would like to talk about that, that would be terrific. Or if anybody has questions about that, I can probably answer them as well. Okay. Um, let's see here. What else do we have? Oh, Amanda, hi.
There we go. Okay. Hi, Amy. Good to see you. I guess this is not necessarily related, but kind of related to what Jeanette was talking about. I guess I have questions about last I heard, and I'm sure not much has changed, but that these like, plagiarism checkers or not necessarily plagiarism checkers, but like AI checkers are not super
Mhm.
reliable. Um, can you kind of talk more about that? And like, are they being used to point out AI generated writing that isn't AI generated writing and vice versa?
Yes, absolutely. The real world performance of these tools does not match up to the performance that is typically claimed within the tools. So these are tools like Turnitin, which is used in academic settings. There is Copy Leaks, which is another popular one. Um, yeah, there just isn't good real world performance. Typically, the way that these tools work is they will take the data that you have copy pasted in or whatever is in your manuscript, and they will then do a quick search to see if it appears anywhere else on the internet, and if so, how often. Is it very similar to the type of information that has been the type of information and combinations of words that tend to pop up in one place, or do they tend to pop up all over the place? Because if they pop up all over the place, there is theoretically a greater chance that this is something that's widely published or for some reason also public domain. How they decide that really depends. It varies according to the tool. Um, I have had, I ran tests a while back with someone else, and we took copy that we had both generated ourselves and copy that had been generated on the same topic by an AI program. And what did I do? Exactly how did I do this? I did an experiment where I took a long article. This is one of the things that we did. We took a long article, we had it summarized by ChatGPT, and then we had the summary. We entered the summary into Claude and had it generate a an article based on that summary. And then we tried putting that through copy leaks. And the second version came out kind of not really not really AI for whatever reason. It just did not think that it was, which is weird because the original text was flagged as AI. So again, some of this is just predictable words and phrases, and some of it just looks like it depends how much human involvement there was. Getting back to your question, though, I would not, I would not base I would not stake an entire argument on the result of a tool. It can be useful. It's something that you could use as part of an argument about whether or not there was AI involved, but not just that. Does that
Can
make
I add to
sense?
that?
Oh yeah, please, Chris.
Cool. Hey, Amy, how you doing? Um,
Hi.
I wouldn't, based on my experience with copy leaks and with Q text, which is supposed to be one of the best ones, because I really looked hard for, which ones that industry people said were the best, not who said themselves they were the best. Um, I wouldn't base anything on anything that a AI detector said because I've been able to fool it both ways without even trying. I have written things straight from scratch and had it tell me it was like 95% likely. And I'm like, dude, there's no way, you know? And I've also had things come right out the gate, come out right out of ChatGPT. And because of my style sheet, because of the conversation I've had beforehand, had it say 1.2% AI when it was 100% AI. I've had it kick out things that were 95% AI. I changed three sentences. Now it's not at all AI. I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to fool it. I'm just doing my job. And even just in
Yeah.
doing my job, I can break thing, So honestly, I don't think they're worth squat. The only reason I continue to do it and use them is because I don't want someone to surprise me with a result that I didn't know it was going to get. But
Yeah.
that's the only I don't base thing on it. I just don't want anybody to come back at me saying, "Oh, this is whatever," and have me not have known. But they,
That makes
I mean,
sense.
honestly, as a matter of fact, it's so funny. Next time you generate something with AI, just hit the refresh button and have it run it again, or even just say, I like that. Can you just make it a little bit longer and just have it run it one more time? And I would bet, at least in my experience, the difference in between the AI-ness of those two things will be vast because it's lazy and it picks what do you call it? It takes the lowest hanging fruit for the first version. And then once you reject that and make it dig a little deeper, it's going to start picking up less likely patterns and it's not going to pick that up at all. So, you know,
That is
they're
devious.
useful only because
I
others are
love
using.
it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I was trying to break it.
I
So
apologize. There have been some things in the chat, and I am having trouble finding the chat for whatever reason. I saw that it appeared, and I went to click on it, and it disappeared for me. So I apologize for that. If please feel free, if you're able to just ask your questions aloud. Um, that's okay. Um, and if you're not able to, if you're in a place with a lot of noise, then I get that too. But I'm having some difficulty finding the chat box. Right. And
I might have a unique situation in that I have a client who is not demanding in a negative way, but like, let's use AI. Let's see what happens. Let's give it a shot. And it's really interesting to have somebody not just that open, but that encouraging. Um, and like you were talking about volume, like, his goal is like, I think we just need more stuff out there, but it still has to be really good. It has to be good as everything else we've ever done. And so that makes it a really interesting challenge to increase volume and also maintain quality. Um, and so I just wanted to put out there that there are people to work for who are very much like that, who are digging it, who are into it, and who are uncompromising on the quality front.
that's fantastic. You're mostly in B2B and B2C, right?
B2B.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense, I think. And I know that there is some excellent work being put out in marketing using AI in very complex and thoughtful ways. And then there are some that are just dumb, as we all know. But yeah, I think that it can be used very well to help things. I am just looking here for, here it is. I had a client in the last couple of months who is neurodivergent, and this person used AI um, pretty extensively within her writing her manuscript. And the editor mentioned that to me, and I spoke with her. And among us, we were able to put together uh, an author's statement on the use of AI and how they worked to use it as an accessibility tool in order to organize thoughts and structure chapters, and also what steps they took to preserve author voice and author ideas. And they ended up, as far as I know, at this point, it's high quality material. But there was extensive AI use, and that was another thing where the editor just kind of noticed it and said something. And I'm glad that they did. We do need to destigmatize AI use. I like that everybody is nodding here because because it was not like this just a year ago. And I don't know if anybody remembers back in like early 2023, we were all terrified we were going to lose our jobs. And some of us did, and then got hired in other places. So yeah, that is one of the things that people talk about a lot. Um, are there questions regarding big picture uh, ideas? Like, what do I mean by that? Is there anything that people are concerned about, for instance, with environmental concerns or data provenance? I would like to. Oh, yeah, please, Angie.
Sorry. Um, I guess what's the current status of copyrightability? I mean, I think there's a big spectrum here, from the author
Yeah.
you were talking about who used assistants to organize ideas and chapters and things like that, and cases. Another potential client that I got something from that it really looked like it was just verbatim, um, you know, uh, the output of a chatbot. And so, what's the status of copyrightability of a work, depending upon what kind of AI assistance was used and the balance between, human authored and uh, chatbot authored material in it.
Uh, well, again, I'm not an attorney. I can't give any kind of legal advice on copyrightability, but I can tell you what the U.S. Copyright Office has been issuing as guidance. There have been clearly some big changes over the past couple of years, and they came out with a three-part um, register of I'm blanking on the word, but they came out with three different documents that had to do with um, digital replicas and let's see here, and copyrightability of this work and generative AI training. Now, I'm going to turn off my camera just so that I can find this chat window. Here it is. Finally, I got it really quickly. Okay. All right. So I'm going to copy paste these documents into the chat so that people can take a look at them for themselves. These are fascinating documents. They're very long, but they are very, very interesting. And a lot of the guidance as far as copyrightability is concerned has to do with human involvement. And let me get that for you in just a second. I can talk a bit, if you like, about the concept of human in the loop and how much that enters into the substantive human interaction with the tool, because that's one of the big concerns there. Previously, there was precedent for copyright law in which if a machine was used to create any portion of the work, then it could not be copyrighted. This began with, I believe, there were two different cases, one of which was an art installation that included a machine creating circles, and it doesn't matter, but there was a machine involved in actually creating the visual work, and and it was not copyrightable because of the fact that it was not original work, even though the engineer who created it did all this work. The other thing that people that's had created precedent was a case in which a chimpanzee was actually used to help create a painting. And there's a lot on that. You can look it up. It's amazing. But those two cases created a lot of the understanding that there could be no non-human involvement in a creative work. And that's been turned on its head. And now it has to do with the amount of involvement with the tool and also being able to prove how much of the work is actually original to a human being. So some of the guidance that I've been giving is to save your logs, save the different chats that you have that you've worked on, save copies of the instructions for any custom GPTs or gems or whatever that you've created. This will be useful in asserting authorship because there is still the reasonable expectation of human authorship. Does that help? That was really all over the place. I apologize for that. There have also been a couple of large cases that were large pieces of civil suit. Excuse me, my brain isn't braining today. Thomson Reuters won a case regarding their data being used and not being purchased, and that was in the millions and millions. And there was the Anthropic case recently, in which they ended up having to pay 20 something million dollars also. And I believe I have that as well. But the point being that my point really is that if you have kids who are about to go to college, get them to become IP lawyers or copyright lawyers, because they're going to have job security for decades.
Can I add something about that Anthropic thing from the inside? I'm not
Oh,
the
please.
insider, if only. If only. And it's about it touches on Angie's question about copyrightability. So these were all pre-AI, so that's not such an issue for that. But my understanding is the payout is based on if the work was officially copywritten. So if you just dropped the book out there in the world and they picked it up and used it, then you don't get paid for that. But if you filed an official copyright with the office, have that documentation, they will pay up. And my understanding is it's like $3,000 a book. It's not a little bit of money. And so there are people who have 20, 30 books that that the Anthropic used, but only have official copyright for 5 or 6. So copyright is hugely important as we move forward, because of these kinds of legalities and payouts and hoops and things like that. So it's a really important question, Angie. Because that's where I mean, because frankly, it's where the money is. So that's the story I got from the inside. So
I'd also
and the other thing was
sorry.
Oh no, well, you were talking about the changes. And the
Well,
other
no, I want to
changes
hear
now
what
that
the other
I
thing
think,
you were talking about. Yeah.
oh, well, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've read it more thoroughly than I have. I tend to like glance at it, get angry, start screaming, and then put it down. Because copyrightability makes me crazy. But nowadays, it's basically the AI part is still not able to be copywritten, but a document or a manuscript can be partially copyrightable because whatever we wrote is copyrightable, but whatever the AI wrote is not. Is that your understanding?
My understanding is that it is the extent of involvement and the extent of change by the human author. My understanding, and I can just go right back into the copyrightability document here. But my understanding is that, and I have it highlighted here somewhere, that it depends upon how the AI was contributing. Because if this is work that has just been generated by AI, it's something that it has spit out, and you're taking it and just lightly editing it and sending it out into the world, that is not copyrightable. However, um, if you are modifying the content substantially and you have proof of that, then you are able to place a copyright, um, depending on whether or not it is being used as an accessibility tool. That's I think that there's something specifically about that here. All right, the links in the U.S. government PDF aren't working, right? So the point is, um, it's more complicated than that. Um, and
Yeah.
proving it is a big thing too, because all of this has to do with actually being able to prove that in order to file the copyright, you actually were creating. There is a percentage which changes according to the work, a percentage of human uh, creation. You get my idea, right? I'm just sort of saying the same thing over and over again.
Because that was an interesting, what started it, at least what I remember starting some of that partial argument was the woman who did the graphic novel. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And of
yes,
course AI did all the art, then she did all the writing, and the copyright office said okay at first, and they copyright the whole thing, and everything was okay, and then they retracted it, and she took them to court for that, and in the end they decided that okay, you can't copyright the art, but you can absolutely copyright all your words, and you
yes,
can copyright the
yes,
layout, which she also did, but they were
yes.
drawing really fine lines. Yeah,
Yeah, and
it was exasperating.
I'm not sure if that would actually turn out differently if it were being dealt with now. Um, because that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I did want to point out also with the Anthropic suit that you're saying that it was $3,000 per work that they were going to pay, right?
That's what I
Well,
heard. Yeah.
HarperCollins actually last year offered its authors a licensing agreement to permit HarperCollins to license their work for training, um, for $2,000 for a specific amount of time. And
Okay.
there were so
So
many
that's
questions like, so that's less money for one thing. And for another thing, this is not a cool deal for many authors. So I just wanted to put that out there because I thought it was
no,
interesting. Yeah, Chris.
that is it's interesting, those
Oh, other
numbers.
Chris.
Those are
I'm
interesting.
sorry. We've got two
Oh,
Chris's here.
that's okay. Oh, Masto. Okay. Hi.
No, that's okay. Actually, I was going to agree with first Chris. Um, my on the copyright. And I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. But my sort of vague understanding matches basically what you said, that this has sort of established this strange new territory that you can have partial ownership of the work based on what you created. And I think they sort of like set out essentially, if one point is like you don't get any credit for prompting. So no matter how much you can. I know a lot of people make an argument of like, oh, I created this because I made the prompts. And it really, I think what the Copyright Office said is it doesn't matter how hard you worked on the prompt. If there is, you ultimately you press the button, and then there's this dividing line between when you press the button and then the AI produced all of the output, then you get zero. Whereas previously, as Amy was saying, right, if you used a machine at all, then you sort of lost credit for it. Whereas now you can use the machine, so you can research it and everything. And then if you still write all the work based on what ChatGPT told you, then you get full credit. Um, but then there's this weird middle ground where it's like, well, it gave me the outline and then I filled in the details, and then maybe it's like half yours now, which is a situation I don't think we really had before. But I'm not a lawyer.
Well, you raise a really great point, Chris, because if your prompts are really good, you won't have to edit so much. So, and once you don't have to edit, then you own even less of it. So don't get too good at prompting.
I just want to point out that this is the the under the underlying thought under this is that it's all in the prompt, and then that nothing happens after that. And that's not generally the case with almost anybody. I mean, if it's going to go through an editor, then there is going to be more interaction. There's going to be the manual review. There's going to be all sorts of different passes for, oh, it is for your coworker as well. Unfortunately, it's like that for some of our writers too, and that is an issue. But gosh, I could put up a slide about the human in the loop and the evaluation process, et cetera. I'm not sure that at this point, with 5 minutes left, that would be a useful thing to do. But there, we're seeing fewer and fewer people try to pass off raw AI generated material because they're feeling bad about it, because they know that there are repercussions, because they're understanding that they can make it better by using it themselves, and then also because they're using it for ideation, they're using it for suggesting structure, for formatting. For instance, if you've prompted your LLM to go through and format all of your citations and rewrite them, is that is not substantive use of AI. You can totally copyright your work that has all of these references and citations formatted and sometimes reworded by the LLM. So the type of use is important. So,
Just
oh,
well, it was a
Angie.
small comment on that. It being in the thinking about education realm, that it seems like a good use would be to write something original and say, I've targeted this at a certain grade level. Now help me adjust it for kids who are 2 years older or 3 years younger than that.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's doing that, but that was one of the things when I was thinking through this that I thought that might be a good use,
I noticed that Heather put in the chat like half an hour ago, and I apologize for not seeing this until now, that you were looking for a refresher on processes for when you do have clients where you have questions about their use. And I can talk about that in our next um, editors and AI meetup, which is the first Monday of each month. And I can put a link to that particular thing here, or actually to my
Fine.
page.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sorry I didn't get to this earlier. So here's a link to my page with upcoming classes, etc. And yeah.
This was a very specific thing, so apologies.
No, it's something that everybody wants to know about. So I will, let's see. So you've got the link there. You've got the link for the copyright information from the government, which is, it's not light reading, I will say now. And yeah, are there any final thoughts, final questions? I'm so surprised that there wasn't anything on climate change and energy usage today, because I've been getting so many questions about that. And so I prepared slides for that just in case. And it wasn't time wasted because I've got something for upcoming AMAs. This is a quarterly thing, so there's another one coming up in March. But I really appreciate everyone who showed up today. Feel free to reach out to me if we're not already in touch. For those of you viewing this after the fact, you will have my email address. You'll be able to get in touch if you have questions about that. And if there are no final thoughts, then I'll give you back the rest of your afternoon.